The writer George Orwell, who coined the concept Big Brother, predicted so much about our modern life with his thoughts about constant surveillance. But the one thing he got wrong was his imagining that the government would brutally infringe on our privacy. How could he have imagined that, in fact, it would be us happily giving our data away to private companies that would represent the biggest threat? When I recently joined a new gym, they casually demanded a sample of my DNA. Some ancestry testing companies keep the data we give them and share it with pharmaceutical companies. Store loyalty cards now collect so much information about what contraception or toiletries we buy, they can tell if we're having an affair. And let's not forget Facebook, which has access to unprecedented levels of intimate imagery and information about our friends, family, and personal history. Much of this tech provides amazing opportunities to improve and enhance our lives. But why aren't we asking more about the ultimate cost? Can I just say I'm enjoying the collective shock.
So that's how I rumbled. Bloody supermarket card. That's how she found out.
So what we've got to realise here, and I think we often miss this, is it's moving so quickly. If you think about the Data Protection Act, when it came out, was over 20 years ago. Over 20 years ago, the internet had barely started. The well-known internet names that are all household names today had barely started. And now it's moved at the speed of light, that 20 years later, and I don't think we've kept up with it. And we've taken full advantage of it. Businesses have, consumers have. We're all just take it for granted. But there's a bad side to it as well. And we're now catching up. And the data part is so... More data has been created in the last few years than the whole of history together. That's how quickly things are moving. So now we've got this new regulation that's an EU regulation, the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. That is now in force to try and get on top of this so we have some control over this, so individuals have some control over this vast amount of data that is out there. And by the way, it is EU regulation, but we in Britain have written a lot of it and asked for it, and we're going to benefit from it as well.
But the problem with the GDPR is, and I'm sure you've all had this experience, in fact, to research this topic today, the number of times I had to tick a box on a website saying, I consent to, and a long list of things. If you want to use modern information services, you have to consent, and you don't know exactly what it means when they ask you about cookies and data. And, you know, I'm a lawyer, and I can't read the pages of terms that I'm asked to sign up to. How is the ordinary internet user expected to really be able to stay on top of the way they're giving their data away? I just want to go to the example of store cards, because there are lots of people in my life who go to quite extreme lengths to get a few extra points on a store loyalty card, you know, to get that £1 off voucher. And I sometimes say to them, have you thought through what that £1 off voucher is costing you? And this is a quote from the head of retail research at Knight Frank, who explained why stores offer these discounts. And he said, the end game for retailers is not to win over the odd customer with the promise of a few money-off vouchers, but to forge as deep an understanding of an individual's shopping patterns as possible, to know where they live, which stores they frequent, how often they visit, how much they spend, and each individual item they buy, and how their online and offline behaviours interrelate. So this isn't like a conspiracy theory. This is the overt justification as to why companies invest in collecting data about us.
But I have to tell you, Afua, I don't think your proper, ordinary person gives a stuff about privacy.
Well, that's why I worry.
I really don't. I think the only people that care and bang on about privacy are the liberal elite, certain sections of the media, and certain lefties. But, you know, if you ask people to sacrifice their privacy in order to catch terrorists or criminals, they'd be absolutely willing to do that. But I do think as well that as a society, we're not interested in protecting our privacy. People, you know, our phone maps every move we make, everything we do. Every credit card purchase is a forever record of what we buy. You know, people are sending photos around the world every day. They're sending stuff about their experiences, what they eat,
Trillions
what they do.
of photographs a year.
We're driven by a vain impulse to broadcast ourselves.
When your gym asked you for the DNA...
I refused.
Did they... I'm
why?
damn straight you did, but did they say why?
Well, yeah, the reason is they claim that they can then offer me a tailor-made health and nutritional program that's designed to meet my specific genetic needs. And, you know, I don't have a problem with the technology of being able to get very specific about health programs based on your body. But the issue I had was when I asked them about the data protection around my DNA, they weren't able to guarantee that they would never share it with a third party, that it would never be sold.
You see,
and the most alarmingly, they said no one else had ever asked them.
To what Carol said, I think ordinary people, if their bank accounts are hacked, if they have money taken out of their account, if they have problems with their communications provider, I think that does affect normal people. Where I think you're right, and you would probably agree, is we are too glib. A lot of this we bring on ourselves. We give too many details.
How often the thing comes through on the computer, it comes, you have to tick something. So you just, are you not read it? You just tick it. They could be taking away your children and your house and everything. You wouldn't know. You just tick it.
That's where that house went.
No, that was the ex-wife, I'm afraid.
For people to get angry, to get riled about this, when they don't actually know, there's nothing to point them to what access to your data can do.
Yeah.
That's why it's difficult
kind
for
of
people
why
to
we're
get
having this
about
debate, Carol. You know, and you kind of said this is a liberal elite kind of thing.
But there
are already cases where the police have, using facial recognition technology, misidentified people and attempted to prosecute them based on misunderstanding or misapplying this technology. And you know, this whole idea of genetic testing is the police tried to build up this big DNA database. People don't realise that you don't catch criminals through DNA. You use it when you have a suspect based on traditional intelligence and policing. Then you can use DNA to corroborate that it was them. But the idea of having these huge dragnets, because they get it wrong.
But you know what's enabling this?
I get it wrong a few times, but I bet they get it right a lot more.
Again, this is the point I made earlier on, the speed at which this is happening. There's also another aspect to it, is it's getting cheaper and cheaper and affordable to do DNA testing. It wasn't long ago that it cost $100 million to analyse DNA. Now it's less than $1,000.
But some of these companies
and it's going to come down to be so...
I did. Look, I'm the complete contradiction in all this. I refused to have store cards for exactly what you are, and then I sent my DNA off to somebody just to find out. And worst thing, I got given it as a present. It never came back.
It's an ancestry test.
Oh, yes.
One of these...
yes, I wanted to find out from whence the dykes really come. And, I never found out.
Well, I could tell you, but it's unfortunately it won't go to air.
Exactly what you're talking about. I had one to determine, because I was going on an eating programme, and the DNA test I had, it said what I should eat, because what my body liked, what it needed, what it was missing. So, I mean, I think they're very useful.
So did you find out what else they might do with your data when you give it to them?
Do you know, I don't even care.
Because what if one day, Carol, you wanted health insurance and it was denied because of a test you never consented to give to a company you never consented to give it to?
Health insurance is never going to be denied as long as I pay for it.
The point is, there are things that you can't yet foresee might affect you that you might be giving away.
That's why people can't get upset about it.
But that's
because
why,
they don't know what's going to happen.
I raised the topic. I realise that people are complacent. I'm on Instagram. You know, I've given away images of my personal life, and we all do it. It's not me saying that I am above everyone. I'm saying we're all complicit in this. But we need to stop and ask what exactly we are giving away.
What about the other aspect of all this? How this data is used in terms of elections? I mean, this is a topic we could talk about the whole time. The interference in elections, whether it was a referendum, whether it's the Russians interfering, supposedly, you know, there are all these issues as well.